So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you so very much for being here with us today. My name is Nestor Velos Pasalagua. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager. And you are here for the Human Services Grant information session. So today we're going to go over some of the details of the grant, give you a little bit of that just very brief short history of the grant, what is the purpose of the grant, the requirements, the funding priority, some of the special considerations that the Human Relations Commission looks into when they make their funding recommendations, the funding decision process that goes through, and then we'll review the timeline. That way you'll know, what's coming up since the application has been open since last week. Let's see here. Okay. So after the presentation, I'll be able to answer all of your questions, but if you just make sure to notate what kind of questions you may have, and then we can always go over some of the specific slides that you may have questions for. The Human Services Grants used to be called the Grants in Aid, and there was a name change back in 2022 as part of the Human Relations Commission, an advisory body in the city of San Luis Obispo, moving from the Community Development Department under the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And the change in the language of the grant was meant to be able to actually address one of the largest issues of human needs in the city of San Luis Obispo. So it changed from Grants in Aid to Human Services Grants. So, and the change was effective last year with the approval from City Council. And so moving from fiscal year 23-24, moving forward, the name of that grant has changed from, again, Grants in Aid to Human Services Grants. With that, also, there was a little bit of a revision on the purpose of the grant as well. And the City of San Luis Obispo, the Human Relations Commission, is the advisory body who oversees the recommendations for the Human Services Grants program. And the program is designed to provide financial support to nonprofit organizations that promote the economic and social well-being of the residents of the City of San Luis Obispo. Granted, we also understand very well that neighboring communities will also benefit from this grant in the sense that other individuals that participate in access services to different organizations in the community, in the city, will receive some of those benefits as part of the funding being recommended to certain organizations. So that's basically the purpose of the Human Services Grant. So what is the funding area? That's something that is key for us to better understand what is it that the Human Relations Commission will be looking at when they make their recommendation. The main priority for the Human Services Grant is homelessness prevention, including affordable and alternative housing, supportive services, and transitional housing. So any of the key programs or proposals that are being presented to the Human Relations Commission for this particular grant that use any of the programs related to homelessness prevention, transitional housing, supportive services, immediately match the main funding priority. So that's really important. The other component is that when City Council approved this new grant, and the changes in the language was to expand some of the other key areas in which many community members still face, which require, for example, looking into hunger and malnutrition prevention. What kind of programs do we have out there that can help prevent that? Other funding priorities, like I mentioned, just the hunger and malnutrition prevention is one of those other funding priorities that the Human Relations Commission will take into consideration when they make their final recommendation to City Council. And they are also valid funding areas. So if a proposal were to come emphasizing the work on supportive physical and mental health services, it will still qualify under the Human Services Grant. It will not be the main funding priority, but it will be a funding priority within the grant that could be also funded with city funds. So The following additional priority areas that I'm going to be telling you right now are not ranked in priority or in order of importance. It doesn't really matter if one of the organizations has 3 of them and their proposal matches all of those components, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter. What's important is to basically in your application have a detailed explanation on how you're really matching those key funding, the other key funding areas as well. So we have hunger and malnutrition prevention, supportive physical and mental health services, services for seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. Next is supportive developmental and care services for children and youth. And finally, any other type of services that will encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion in marginalized communities. And that, for example, includes language access to different services. Special considerations. Something that the Human Relations Commissions look into when they review the applications. They also want to make sure, like, what's going to be the impact of the dollars being used for the proposed project or the program, and they want to make sure that it's going to have a long-lasting impact in the community. So some of the areas that they looked into include having matching grants that are secure already, ongoing fundraising and services that were severely impacted by COVID, and the organization does not have other means to maintain those services. That's something that the HRC looks into so they can get funded. Other pieces that they look into include, for example, train and support services. So support service providers to expand the scope of services of the programs that they have, so they actually are able to provide those services to a higher number of individuals in the community. They also looked into looking into funding areas or new projects, programs that are new, but also that have some type of ongoing funding that ultimately will impact the organization and the community in a positive manner. And lastly, the direct services that are actually provided to the community member have a low overhead and administrative costs, but definitely have a larger impact. So the reason that these special considerations exist is because the Human Relations Commission takes into in a very detailed process, what is it that is going to be more beneficial to the community, understanding what are some of those gaps that exist, and what are the organizations that kind of are established already, and how they can partner up to have the larger impact available in the community. Okay, so what are the funding requirements? The organizations that, something that the HRC wanted us to kind of look into is that sometimes organizations that have received the funding before have been performing well. So they just wanted us to kind of have a look and understanding that everyone that were to apply for the funding should be in good standing from previous years. Ultimately, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, we do not make those determinations. Ultimately, is the recommendation of the Human Relations Commissions that will determine that they want to move forward with funding, considering, if the organization was in full compliance and they did everything else they needed to do in the prior year for funding. So that's definitely their prerogative. That's what HRC can look into when they make their final recommendations and decisions. The grants are made to organizations that serve residents in the city of San Luis Obispo, but again, like I mentioned earlier, agencies that serve residents in neighboring communities as well, but that also serve a significant number of city residents will be considered. So we know very well that a lot of our great partner organizations have different locations throughout the entire county. And as they continue to serve individuals that not only live in the city, they also expand outside in neighboring communities. So we want to make sure that, yes, there is a larger outreach, but the emphasis on providing the services really focused and are centered in the city of San Luis Obispo as well. Grants are only made to nonprofit organizations. And finally, all the organizations must comply also with the Human Relations Commission's bylaws. which are intended to create an environment within the city in which all persons can enjoy equal rights and opportunities regardless of race, religion, sex, national origin, sexual orientation, age, physical, mental, and economic status. So that's something that's critical. So we want to make sure that our applicants out there as being nonprofit organizations know where the HRC stands. Other funding requirements is the applications for a specific program, a project, or equipment, or just general operational support will be considered if the organization's missions also fall under one or more of the priority funding areas. And the reason why this type of requirement exists is just because HRC as well receives multiple applications, so they have to consider which ones are the best organizations in which they ask for the funding truly also matches the organization's missions and values and perspectives to continue to impact the community for the better. The other component is that nonprofit organizations must enter into a contract with the city prior to receipt of the human services grant funds are being distributed. And when we go to the timelines, we'll go over that information in regards to when we are expected to, for HRC to review all of the grant applications and then to do the recommendation process and then move on to city council for approval and then moving on to contracting in the future. And then something that is very important to continue to provide support to HRC is that all applications should be completely done, the package, when they are submitted and within the deadline. So that's something that's very important to consider. The deadline for this application will end in March 1st at 5 p.m. So we still have plenty of time in the development of the applications. And as you all know, the Office of DEI will be offering technical assistant hours next week on Monday the 5th and then on Monday the 12th of February from 1 to 5 to be able to provide support to any of the applicants and nonprofit organizations that are going to be applying for this grant program. Now, additionally, about the funding requirements, when you start completing the application, there's just a couple of things that I want to let you know right now. So you think what is it, what kind of documents you need to start collecting to get you ahead of the process. Well, one, you need to make sure that you complete the application online and on time, again. You also need to provide a one-page organizational chart of the organization, of the entire organization. You also need to provide a document certifying the federal tax exempt status of the organization. Item number 4 will include a one-page detailed budget for the proposed program, project, initiative, that basically includes what's the total requested amount that will be spent. And then item number 5 is the copy of the organization's most recent complete financial statement. So we have those that records. And then finally, organizations need to also provide a one-page of their diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. And that statement should include their understanding and application of diversity, equity, and inclusion. For example, if you have a mission statement or a purpose statement or a vision statement, we're hoping that all of those are kind of integrated as well with the DEI statement. The other component about the DEI statement that you should consider is having affirming language that creates access and a sense of belonging in the community. And finally, within the DEI statement, you can explain how the project will continue to advance DEI efforts in the city. And you're more than welcome to also add some of those components in the actual document of the application in the proposed project, as well as you continue to link information from what you have already compiled from the DI statement, as well as you can add some of those pieces as part of the proposed project or program. Okay, so in the past, what we've been doing also is to be able to provide some examples to during the information sessions. That way, applicants that are thinking about looking into what is it that it looks like for successful applicants to receive funding under this grant is. So, for example, some of those previous funded proposals that we received include rapid rehousing programs, assistance for low-income immigrant families and others who do not qualify, or for expenses that are not covered through any of the federal assistance programs that exist. Another program that was funded, for example, was partial funds to cover staffing to support families experiencing homelessness and being able to provide coordination of services to those family members, helping them with case management, medical services coordination, housing match, legal resources, and even mental health. Another successful application that we received was, for example, something related exclusively on hunger and malnutrition prevention, right? This is on the development of cooked bags of healthy portable food designs for a diverse group of individuals in the city that are experiencing homelessness. And the food items are basically curated to contain a full day supply to meet the nutritional and dental challenges of individuals. And another successful proposal that we received, for example, was funds for outreach services to engage in homelessness prevention for seniors and disabled adults residing in long-term facilities. As you can tell by the example, many of them actually do focus on homelessness prevention because, again, that is the primary funding priority for this particular grant. But that doesn't exclude, like, for example, the third example I gave you about the no-cook bags of food, right? Because that also is part of being able to provide services to individuals who fall under these grants oversight. Okay, now funding decisions, how is that being made? As I mentioned earlier to you, the Human Relations Commission, the HRC, is the advisory body that reviews and basically provide the final recommendations to City Council for final approval. So now final funding recommendations are presented before City Council for approval, usually about 2 months after they're finalized reviewing all of the grants. All of the proposals will be evaluated for meeting the main funding criteria, like I mentioned earlier, and the other funding areas as well. They will also determine what is the potential success, the application of the funding, and how they advance systemic change in the entire city and in the neighboring communities as well. And then finally, the HRC actually exercises their own discretion in selecting and developing their funding recommendations. So while they are very in tune in understanding the main funding criteria, they want to make sure that those elements of homelessness prevention and transitional housing and even rapid rehousing elements are being added into the main funding priority, and then they continue to engage on those. They also want to make sure that what other areas funding can be allocated to, and that's why the other funding areas are critical to also look into. But ultimately, they do exercise their discretion to determine where funding should be allocated. So timeline. As you all know, on January 22nd, the application opened. January 29th, today, we're doing the information session. February 5th, we have our technical assistance hours. On February 12th, we have another technical assistance. That's going to be both days from 1 in the afternoon until 5 in the afternoon. You are more than welcome to email the Office of DI or email me directly if you are interested. I do want to let you know that I already have a few appointments done, so I don't have that many left, but do please email me. And then we need to find another day and time. I'll make sure to allocate some time to meet with you and answer any questions that you may have. March 1st is when the application is due by 5 p.m. All the applications need to be submitted electronically. March 2024, the entire month of March will basically have the Human Relations Grant Subcommittee, which is basically the Human Relations Commission. 3 of them, of the commissioners, will meet. The process basically includes each one of them receives all the applications and they get to review the application on independently. And then they meet twice as a group and make the final recommendations during those two processes. In April 4th, we are going to be holding a public hearing after the subcommittee provides the recommendations to the entire Human Relations Commission. That way, all of the applicants who submitted an application and are interested, they are more than welcome to attend the public hearing and listen to the conversation that the HRC engages on the development of their final recommendations. Then our goal is to be with City Council in May to present the final recommendations for the Human Relations Commission. By June 2024, we hope to start routing those contracts for the selected approval of the recommendations received by the HRC. And then by July, we hope to have all the executed contracts and the funds being released to the applicants that received the approval from City Council as part of the 24-25 Human Services Grants. So as you can see, we are just at the beginning of the process of HRC. We have the entire month of February to complete the application. And you have the availability to contact me to be able to offer you the technical assistance in the completion of the application. And then again, March, and then moving forward with the contracts and final funds release being in July of 2024. That being said, I'm at a point where I can actually answer any of your questions. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand so I can actually call on you. And I'm gonna try to keep an eye on all the application, all of everyone's here on the screen. Becca.
Hi, Nestor. Hi, everyone. I was just curious a little if you could say more about the DEI attachment and if you have anything in particular you're looking for. Is homelessness in general DEI for economic status, or are you looking for projects that only serve certain classes of people who are homeless? That kind of thing.
No. So basically, the DI statement is a well-rounded statement of the organization's perception on how they can continue to do their work by embracing their own type of changes organizationally. If the organization is looking specifically at doing addressing homelessness prevention, excellent. They need already that, right? The addition of that one-page document of the DI statement, it helps HRC when they make their decisions, right? They look into, okay, this organization is actually working towards creating more equity within their, their workforce. They want to make sure that they see that commitment that organizations have, and every organization is a little bit differently. Some may have a DI statement already. Some of them may be in the process of developing that. It is not a minus point in the application, but it is needed still, right? And so it is important to highlight that it has to be added as well. But we also understand the organizations are in the spectrum of developing some of that piece. So as long as they are able to tell that story in the application and submit at least one page on where they are with that, that will be still applicable.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Then Doug.
Hey, thanks for the great presentation. Just had a question, and maybe with some of the people here like to partner up with somebody regarding the justice system. You know, we've got this new opportunity that individuals will have medical insurance before they leave. I'm very interested in the number of people that have traumatic brain injuries that can be treated before they go back and don't do well. So I just see that roller coaster, the people in their black bags leaving the jail, going down to the bus station and coming around. Is there any individual or program that's going to be helping address those individuals that are out of the justice system?
That's a great question. I think there are definitely intersections that really cover, for example, some of the key funding areas, right? Because something that you're talking about does truly have an impact in understanding what potential homelessness these individuals may be experiencing. And even looking at supportive services that they might need to be able to successfully be part of the community. And then That being said, there are definitely intersections in which that could be applicable. That question for me, I think, would be, you and I can chat more a little bit on this more, but I'll being able to find other partners in the community that can help actually build that together as a program or project and help put all of that into one successful proposal. But that's where I see that there are definitely intersections, and that's my initial reaction, in which how we can actually build something that may potentially be successful for the entire community.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you'd be like a clearinghouse, because again, there's so many good people here, and we also be working together. It's too bad we're almost competing sometimes, and that's the whole problem with homeless, is at least what people look on the outside. So we're San Luis Obispo. We should all be working together. Thanks for everybody else with all your efforts. Thank you.
Yeah. Erica?
Yeah, Nestor, I have a quick question. Can two organizations work in collaboration for these funds?
Yes, they can if they want to. Only one organization will be the lead applicant. The total dollar amount that I do want to mention to all of you is that applicants can ask up to $20,000. So if you were to collaborate with another organization, yes, you can do it, but there should be only one lead organization. And in the application, they should also mention, who is the other organization they're working with and partnering up in either implementing portions of the project or helping them kind of come together to continue to do the outreach piece, depending on what is it that the proposal is asking for. But definitely that's something that can happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Karen.
Hi, thanks. So one question and one kind of response for Doug. So my question is, I noticed that the dollar amount seems like it may be a higher minimum. Are you guys looking at funding less organizations with more funding this year?
So it's being kept at $20,000 for last year and now this year as well, and being the max amount. This specific grant has not really changed as much. I think it's giving the opportunity for collaboration between agencies, just like Erica mentioned. If they were to be able to partner up and show that there is a need for $20,000, that will happen, and then that can actually be a good way to the HRC to look at how funding should be distributed. But we're not intending necessarily for that. It is really the best. So direction that I get from HRC as the DI manager is that we want to make sure that my office kind of provides that support to the organizations that are applying, and then we are able to present the best kind of proposals to the HRC, and then they make that final decision on where funding is recommended. But I wish we could have more funding in which we continue to provide amazing work that all the communities organizations are doing. But really, it's not intended to wanting to give higher funding for lower amount or less communities participating. But it's seeing which one is truly matching the funding priority or have the higher impact in the community.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then for Doug, if you do have clients who are leaving the system and they have care needs and might need care placement or in a facility, feel free to give me a call. I don't seem to notice the chat on this one, but my phone number is 805-785-0132. I do a lot of consulting with hospitals, care facilities, out of area providers about what to do with people who are homeless and needing placement in facilities. So it's for people that slightly higher care need that don't need to be out on the streets. That's pretty much a day-to-day thing for us to do that consulting with. So happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Sienna.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering if it would be more persuasive to submit a request for general operating funds versus for a specific project, or if there are certain areas that are more likely to receive funding than others.
If you look at general operations, as long as that general operation will be supporting the main funding priority and or any of the other funding areas, I would say yes. But it has to be really tightly, the connection should be very tight in between that operation service that is being provided to the main funding priority or the other funding areas, right? Because it's still in the application, there is a question about are you selecting the main funding priority, yes or no? And then there's another question, if you said no, then they want to know, are you also meeting the other funding areas? And then you get to select, all of the other funding areas or only one or two of the other funding areas. So I would say just as long as there is a match in there between that operations piece to the main funding priority, then I would say definitely there could be a potential successful application.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? I don't think there are any other questions. So the only thing I want to remind you all again is the application is open. The application closes March 1st. We have technical assistant hours on February 5th from 1 to 5, and also February 12th from 1 to 5. Please email me or email the Office of TEI. Unfortunately, the chat as feature of this is not enabled, but the emails that I had sent have my email as well as the Office of TEI email. Do please make sure to follow up if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to assist you and help you with any questions that you may have, and also make sure that you complete an application that is successful. And then, in hopes that the Human Relations Commission will fund it as well. That being said, if there are no other questions, I can go ahead and stop. I will stay here in the room in case any of you may have any other follow-up questions. And because I have another information session in Spanish starting at 3. So, but I'll be here, and you're all more than welcome to log off at this point. Thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to providing any technical assistance that you may need, and looking forward to receiving your applications as well.
Thank you, Nestor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nestor.
Thank you.
I'm going to stay on because I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready,
Well,
Donna.
we chatted on the phone, I think a week ago or so. So I just want to circle back to Sienna's question about the general operating support. So I think that our organization is probably too broad for that, because to me, general operating support is for the organization. I mean, a program doesn't have general operating support, it has program support. So I'm thinking that because we're going to apply ours to our senior legal services program, that general operating support doesn't really make sense. We just need to focus it on that, but with the housing overlay, that is what I plan to do. Does that make sense to you?
That makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought a lot about it after we talked, and we actually have been doing a ton of housing cases under senior legal, and it's eviction prevention, so it's homelessness prevention, and a lot of our funding, a good chunk of it's going to end on September 30th, and so I want to apply for this to backfill that. Does that make sense as something that would fit with your priorities?
It would fit, yeah. It will fit in the priority, in the main priority, the main funding priority, right? Looking at that homelessness prevention, and then you even actually looking at the fact that we're, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that you're talking about also the elderly population, right? So you're concentrating in one particular area, in one particular population that actually probably has higher needs, and then it's still within the funding priority. So I think it'll be an applicable, it'll be a good application on that end. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is it just my imagination, or in years past, and I mean, I'm talking 5 years ago, were these grants open to a much larger population of nonprofits in our area? Like it wasn't.
No, it was some.
But it didn't have the homelessness prevention overlay, did it?
No,
like,
it changed. That changed.
Okay, it did. I'm not imagining that. Okay. I just remember applying for this grant with another nonprofit, and I didn't remember that piece of it being there. And so it was like, oh, okay, that's different and new. New-ish.
Yeah, so there are several grants that also have the name of grants in aid. there was a cultural grants in aid as well, which is
Oh, that's
particularly for
what it was. Okay. That's
different
what I'm
events.
thinking. Okay.
Yeah, and then so the reason that we had to change the name of this is because we're really focusing on human needs, understanding what the needs of that we have here in the city of Slough are. And then so moving it from grants in A, and then the previous one had it was cultural grants in A to human services grant, really focused mainly on what is it that we're trying to address here in the city, right? So we wanted to make sure that we're talking about homelessness prevention, which is something that is critical for every city here in California, but we know very well what we need to do here in Slough. So and since the HRC moved from the Community Development Department to the Office of DEI, they were charged with that DEI lens. So all the components were added into it, and then under nutrition and other, sorry, I've been talking so much that I'm a little bit dry in my mouth. But supported housing, physical, mental health needs, all of those components were kind of built into one. And so now this grant actually, while the main priority is homelessness prevention, it touches upon other key needs in the community.
Right. So I'm curious to see, Rick, how you're going to put Viking into this one.
Well, so I do have a question. I want to make sure that I'm correct on this. So the main category is homeless prevention and alternate, all that was laid out there, correct? That's and then subsets meeting that seniors and veterans have to be related. It has to be connected to homelessness. No.
No.
It can be a senior service.
And I can tell you that from first-hand experience, Rick, because our grant this last year, we weren't actually doing housing services under our senior legal services for the year we're in right now. So we're doing senior legal, but our housing's being handled in a separate program. And we were considered, but it was how it fell into Nestor, did I understand this right? That they took all of the ones that checked the box of homelessness prevention and kind of put those as first priority and then looked at what was left on the other priorities?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so Rick, to answer your question briefly, so the main funding priority is homelessness prevention that includes affordable and alternative housing, supported services, and transitional housing. There are 5 other funding areas as well. And those focus on, one is hunger and malnutrition prevention. The other one is supported physical and mental health services. And then third is supported for seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. The fourth is supportive, developmental, and care services for children and youth in need. And then the fifth one would be services encouraging diversity, equity, and inclusion in marginalized groups or communities.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So Donna, we're looking at a new program serving seniors in a wellness, from a wellness standpoint. Much different than just riding a bike, but it's
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. I do know that our dollar amount did go down, not significantly, but it did go down some this last year because we didn't have the homelessness prevention overlay, but we were still funded. I don't know how many other grants were. Nestor, you probably don't have that off the top of your head.
19 organizations were funded total last year.
How many?
19.
19.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, they all range, right? So some of them were asking for $10,000. Some of them were asking for $5,000. Some of them were asking for $3,750. It varies. I think the highest dollar amount that was requested was $20,000, which is the highest anyways. Mm-hmm. And I think the most that we gave was, actually, no, I think it was one that we gave $20,000 to. Oh, yes, it was to one organization under the Human Services Grant for the previous fiscal year. I can't remember the name of the organization on the top of my head, but I remember there were 19 organizations because I'm currently working on getting all of their mid-year reports. So, yeah, so it varies, to be honest. It varies. Sometimes Yep, the Human Relations Commissions will get like 40 applications, you know, and then maybe 2 or 3 of them are not fully complete, so they are not reviewed anymore because they didn't need that. But then we have these other 37 there that need to be fully reviewed by all of the commissions. So, yeah,
Do you
hopefully that
know,
answers.
do you know what the pot of money is that's being divvied up this year?
It's $150,000.
Okay. And do they always spend all of it or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of it. Mhm.
Okay. Just gives me some perspective on it. I mean, if you take that divided by 19, you can tell the average size of a grant.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of, and that's you know, that's other piece I think sometimes the HRC really considers when they talk about impact, right? So if we are only given up to $20,000, technically, you know, we're talking about I'm not about 7 organizations that could potentially take the entire dollar amount, right? If they were to fund up to $20,000, and it becomes difficult, right? Because they also want to make sure that I really like this organization and I really like their vision and their purpose and what they're doing out in the community, but we don't have all the funding to be able to give them what they need to implement this project. So it becomes a little bit difficult because, again, 150,000 goes really fast. I mean, goes away really fast.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the session.
Yes. Thank
Of
you,
course.
Nestor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Mhm.
All right. See y'all later. Rick, I'll see you on Friday.
Right. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Nestor, can you hear me?
Hi, Michelle. Yes.
Oh, hi, Nestor. Hey, would you be able to send the PowerPoint that you presented as an attachment?
Yes, I can. Mhm.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you. Okay.
Likewise.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, Doug. Do you have any questions for me? Hi, Doug. Do you have any questions for me? If not, I'm going to go ahead and just stop the recording. And then you'll be able to access this information as well on the website. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Doug. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Bye-bye.